Okay, so let's take a look at bone development and growth. Bone development and growth is known as osteogenesis, so making bone. All right. In both of these processes, what we're going to talk about is what is known as an ossification. So that's a conversion of connective tissue into bone. All right. So the first is called intramembranous ossification. So intra means within, membrane, so within membrane. Okay. So this is bone that forms from membrane-like layers of primitive connective tissue. All right. So here, the primitive connective tissue is that mesenchyme that we talked about back in chapter 4. So here we're going to start with the appearance of mesenchyme. All right. And then fibroblasts in that mesenchyme are going to specialize in osteoblasts. So these yellow cells here are osteoblasts. And so those osteoblasts then are going to deposit a bony matrix around them. So they just start making bone, is what they do. And so over time, this results in a spongy bone form of the bone. Okay, so you can see here's the whole bone. It's all spongy bone at this point. All right, and so the last part here is osteoblasts are going to fill in those edges, and that's what we see here and here. All right, and that forms compact bone on those edges. All right, and so that's intramembranous ossification. So this makes most of the bones that we talk about. So this makes flat bones, this makes sesamoid bones, it makes irregular bones, and it makes short bones. So those bones it doesn't make are long bones. And so let's look at the next type of ossification, and this is called endochondral ossification. So endochondral ossification, endo within, chondro cartilage, so within cartilage. So here we're converting cartilage to bone. So this is the embryonic formation of bone by the replacement of hyaline cartilage with bone. So here, this is going to start with a hyaline cartilage model of the bone. And in the middle of that bone, what's going to happen, that's what we see here, is that chondrocytes are going to convert into osteoblasts. All right? So when you look at this picture, this lighter purple here is trying to show cartilage. This kind of bone color is bone, and then the dark purple is where we're converting that cartilage to bone. All right. So here in the middle of the bone, which is known as the diaphysis, right? What's happening here is osteoblasts are going to convert that cartilage there to bone. All right. And so what's going to happen then is they're going to start working towards the ends of the bone, which are known as epiphyses. All right. So that's what we see here. It's a little bit later on, and this is even later on still. All right, so this is how we make long bones. Now, this leads us right into the next thing that we're going to talk about, and that is the growth of long bones. So let's look at the next picture here. So the growth of long bones occurs on at the epithelial plates. So this is an epithelial plate. Now, just like what I said in the previous slide, here's bone, there's bone. The light purple there is cartilage. The dark purple is where we're converting that cartilage to bone. Okay? So the epithelial plate here, there's a band of cartilage where bone growth occurs. And it separates the diaphysis, the middle portion of the long bone, from an epiphysis, which is an end of a long bone. Now, if we just go ahead and go to this picture here, this is an x-ray of a child's hands. And you can see here, these are the phalanges here, and you can see there's the epithelial plate. So it's cartilage, so cartilage, the x-rays can move easier through cartilage than they can through bone. So you see these lines showing those epithelial plates. So here it is on the radius, there it is on the ulna as well. So if we go back to this picture here, okay, is that new chondrocytes and cartilage are made at the epithelial plate, all right? And then when that new cartilage is made, it's pushed down towards the diaphysis. So this pushes the epiphysis, this head part here, up further. And in doing so, that elongates the diaphysis, all right? So in the diaphysis, you're seeing that dark purple zone. That's where we're converting that cartilage to bone. So, we have two processes occurring here. We have making new cartilaginous cells here, making new cartilage, that lengthens the bone, and then we're converting that cartilage. So the other process is we're converting that cartilage to bone. So hormones are going to control both of these processes. But what's eventually going to happen here is this area, what is known as that zone of calcification, where we convert that cartilage to bone, is eventually going to overrun all the cartilage in the epithelial plate. And when that occurs, when it overruns all that cartilage in the epithelial plate, it converts it to bone, and bone growth stops. Okay, let's take a look at the homeostasis of bone. So we have two cells involved here. One is osteoblasts, those are cells that produce bone, and the other are osteoclasts, and those are cells that break down bone. Now osteoclasts and osteoblasts work constantly in us. All right. In fact, we recycle anywhere from 5 to 7% of our bone every year. All right. And we're going to replace all the spongy bone in our body every 3 to 4 years. And we replace all the compact bone in us about every 10 years. So all the bone that you had in you 10 years ago, you've completely remade that. All right. So let's look at factors affecting bone growth. So one are vitamins. So 3 vitamins involved here. One is vitamin D. Vitamin D is necessary for the proper absorption of calcium ions by our small intestine. All right. So we get vitamin D in eggs and fortified milk. We also get it in our skin by sunlight exposure. Vitamin A is necessary for normal osteoblast and osteoclast activity. So these cells don't work as well without vitamin A. And that's why if you buy milk in the store, it's fortified with vitamin A and D. Vitamin C is required for collagen synthesis. So if you have a deficiency in vitamin C, you're not going to have as much collagen in your bones. Your bones are going to be more brittle. So all those are very important. Okay. So next are hormones and glands. So the first is the pituitary gland, which I don't have a picture of here, but our pituitary gland is up by our brain. It's underneath our hypothalamus, and it produces a pretty important hormone here called growth hormone. And growth hormone stimulates the division of cartilaginous cells at the epithelial plate, so it stimulates bone growth. All right. Next is our thyroid gland. So if you feel your voice box just a little bit below, probably in this location right there, is where your thyroid is located. And so a couple of different hormones here associated with bones. One is thyroid hormone. Now, thyroid hormone in of itself regulates our basic metabolic rate, all right? But what it does is it causes the conversion of cartilage to bone at those epithelial plates. So it's going to slow our bone growth, all right? Next is calcitonin, and calcitonin inhibits bone breakdown. So if you're inhibiting bone breakdown, you're inhibiting osteoclasts, it stimulates osteoblasts. So it stimulates making of bone there, all right? So the parathyroid hormone, so this is showing the thyroid gland. These little yellow dots there, those are the parathyroid glands, which are on the thyroid gland itself. And they produce parathyroid hormone, okay? And parathyroid hormone has the opposite effects of calcitonin. So what it does is it stimulates bone breakdown. So it stimulates osteoclasts, it inhibits osteoblasts. So it causes us to break down bone. So, when we break down bone, we release calcium into the blood. If we make bone, we pull calcium out of the blood. So these two hormones, calcitonin, parathyroid hormone, regulate our blood calcium ion levels. Also, sex hormones are going to influence this as well. So they're going to promote the formation of bone tissue, all right? Basically slowing our growth there, all right? Next is physical stress. Physical stress stimulates the production of bone, and that's, and I don't mean just like hitting things. What I'm talking about here with physical stress is when you contract muscles, they're going to pull on bones, and by pulling on bones, that's going to increase bone density. So this is something to think about as we age, because we have a tendency to become more sedentary. So if we get up and be active, it's going to help our bone health out. Now, a couple of the things I do want to mention here is that most of your height is determined from your genetics. So 80% of it is determined from your genetics. The other 20% is determined from your environment. Most of that is diet. And so this is why we typically see Western nations have, on average, taller people, because they have a better diet.